Welcome, Color of Success podcast family. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie J. Wong. Check out my memoir, Cancel the Filter, Realities of a Psychologist, Podcaster, and Working Mother of Color, where I share my experiences in the realm of mental health, both professionally and personally. Color of Success podcast is streaming on all your favorite platforms and socials. Whether you're on the go or comfy on the sofa, you can tune in at your own comfort. As you know, we love growing discussions with our guests from our AAPI and ethnic minority communities. With so many friends and experts from different aspects of life, we love learning their stories and understanding what their success means to them. Let's get into it. Nikki Carrido is the VP of Marketing Strategy and Sponsorships at the Museum of Pop Culture, or MoPOP. In her role, Nikki has been steering MoPOP into an exciting new era of engagement and connectivity with pop culture enthusiasts around the globe. Nikki, a proud member of the AAPI community, centers diversity and equity in every partnership she brokers. Under Nikki's leadership, MoPOP has partnered with the University of Washington Sports as their official sponsor of women's sports and advertising partnerships with iHeartMedia, Root Sports, and Seattle Sports. This innovative thinking and strategy behind Nikki's inclusion of sports with MoPOP, with the understanding that sports are one of the largest sectors of pop culture, with 90% of the American population actively watching sports and 4 billion people watching soccer worldwide. Nikki, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I'm so excited to talk all about pop culture and to learn about your journey.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So walk me through your journey of becoming the VP of Marketing and Advertising at the Museum of Pop Culture.
Well, it wasn't a straight journey. I'll say that. There was a lot of twists, turns, a lot of pit stops on the way. I figure it as a roadmap. But I started in banking when I was 17.
Wow.
Yes. So they came to high school and I just fell into it. During college, they paid for my college. And so I was given all of these opportunities after I graduated. And at one point, I'm 24 and I'm like, this can't be it. So I decided to go to grad school. And because I wanted to be an executive. And the only way the people that I was meeting was saying, hey, you got to go to grad school or you can work 20 years to get to that role. And
like every good Asian woman.
Right. And so I said, no, I'm going to. At the time, I wasn't married. I didn't have any kids. I didn't have any real commitments. And so I said, okay, I'm going to pause my career. I'm going to go to grad school and be done in 2 years. And I'm going to come back out. I'm going to do something in marketing. And I came back out during the recession. So the bank obviously didn't go into recession, and they were starting to rehire at that time when I got out of grad school. And I had really good contacts there. And so I went back. And then again, I caught myself sitting there around the table. No one looked like me. I was the only female that wasn't in an admin role, which is fine. But I didn't see anyone that looked like me. And again, I said, this can't be it. Yeah. And so I found myself in Amazon in advertising, which was really amazing, but I was individual contributor. And I said, I actually want to lead people. I want to do something more. And I got another opportunity, but it was with a credit union. And they said, do all the things that you want here. I got into a senior leadership role. And again, I'm looking around the table and I am the one trying to knock on doors, move forward. And there's not that many Asian women in leadership in financial services. And so for me, 2022 hit and I said, you know what, I can't do this. I have another good 15, 20 years in me and I want to do something different. And so I stopped and started investing in myself. I started taking some classes. I started researching and seeing where I wanted to be in my next step. And I wanted to be somewhere fun. I love Hello Kitty. I love Tupac. I love fashion.
I love Hello Kitty, fashion, BTS.
All of it. And I couldn't bring that I couldn't bring that to financial services. And so I always felt like there was something missing and I couldn't be myself. And I live in Seattle, and there's a big museum that's all about music, pop culture. They had a VP of marketing roll out. I knew that they were really looking to get into more DEI. It was clear. They hired a new CEO. She's a Black woman from Philadelphia, was a CFO at the Woodland Park Zoo. And I said, you know what? I think I want to be there. And I had a friend who was in the industry and said, send me your resume. I didn't think I was cool enough to work for a museum of pop culture. But that's exactly how I got here. But I specifically was saying to myself, you are not going to work in financial services anymore, whether that's going to be tech or sports. I was just looking at things that interested me. So that way in the future, I could set myself up to being able to be myself at work.
And walk me through that feeling, because when you are the only fill in the blank, there's something that gets stirred up in you, and this desire to want to find other folks that can relate to you.
Yeah. So being that I started in banking at 17, it was a lot of, wow, I don't see anyone. I personally had goals. I finished school really fast. I went to Running Start as in high school. So I was already doing my AA by the time I was, by graduating. And then I get to college and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this really fast so I can get into the workforce. I get there and then I'm like, where is everyone? And I have this internal desire to want to do more all the time. So it's kind of like I can't really describe it. Like I also really want people to excel. And I was like, well, I'm in this position. I'm rising up. So I have a platform. I have a voice. And so I started using that voice and saying, hey, I'm here. And then as I was meeting people in the community or even at the office, I'm like, hey, yeah, you're a teller right now, but have you thought about going to school? Have you thought about doing these things? So I knew in myself that I can, while I'm here, I can start leading and start helping women. And then especially Asian women is kind of what I've really pinpoint myself and say, okay, I can actually help. And then being that ally for other women. And it started to when I was at the bank, they had women's groups. So I was in a women's group, I think when I was like 18. And you're seeing these affinity groups, you're meeting all these other women. And so it just inspired me to say, okay, what can I do? If I can't change everything, I can at least change one person's view of what they can do for themselves.
So what mental health challenges have come up for you throughout your career, and how have you coped with those?
Family, choosing between what's your priority. Everyone says, oh, there's work-life balance. We work 5 days a week, mostly 40 plus hours, right? So there's not really a balance there. I personally believe there's not really a work-life balance, but I look at my family as my priority. And that had started way before I even got into the workforce, is who's with you through all the challenges in your life. Who do you go to when you're like, oh, I need to make this decision? It's my family. And I will make those sacrifices and those decisions in order to help my family because I know that I'm hireable. I went to school, I have a degree, I have experience. So any company, I can go to any company, but what I can't replace is my family. And so that is the challenge that I think a lot of people have of, well, I can't make it to this because I got to go to work. I made it clear when I started working in every job that I've had that, hey, my family's my priority. I will come and I will give you 110%. I'm going to go hard. But at the end of the day, if I need to do something for my family, I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I need to take a few hours. I'm going to go here and I'm going to go to an appointment. I'll be back online. And your work and your performance and that shows. And so I've I had a lot of great leaders that supported me. But it comes with a lot of stress on how do you take care of your family and how do you take care of yourself at the same time. And I think for me, my personal life is really important. And I, at the time, was, in a relationship, and I decided to step away. I got disengaged. It wasn't what I wanted in my personal life. My sister said, you know what, I think you need to go start speaking to someone. And so I sought out a psychotherapist who specifically focused in women, family, careers. And she really talked to me during this time and was asking me, well, you're not going to compromise your personal life. Why are you compromising your professional life?
Mm.
And that question really stuck with me because I said, wow, I am actually compromising what I'm doing. I'm compromising, saying, oh, yeah, it's okay that I'm not a leader, right? Or I don't think I can do that. And she was like, why are you compromising yourself? You have your degree, you've done all these things. And so I had to go speak to someone because I didn't even know I was doing it.
Mm. It's almost like that
And
self-sabotage, right? Of
yeah,
like that negative self-talk and honestly, that's parallel to what goes on in society is I tell my daughters all the time, people are going to tell you that you're not as good at math as males or others. And so you really need to understand that that's not the reality or the truth. It's okay if your teacher pushes you a little bit harder and challenges you so that she's preparing you for these kinds of things in society.
yeah, it's true. And if you don't stop or have someone around you, I have a really strong, personal network. My family's very strong and very supportive of me. So if I wasn't able to talk about it to my sister, I don't know, where I would actually and have ended up. I would have been maybe married, divorced with 2 kids, in a house at age 40, if I hadn't decided to make some decisions on my own. But yeah, it's definitely that.
But that's really tough because I think even when we know what's the best for us, making those decisions is really hard. So, what would you tell your past self or even others now how to really navigate that and motivate yourself to actually make that jump?
Don't be afraid. I think I was afraid of what my family felt. I'm Asian, obviously, and there are a lot of unspoken things that you're supposed to be doing. And like this is what you should go into school, you should go out, you should get married right away, you should have a family, you should buy a house. But don't be afraid to be like, you know what? No, that's not my path. And knowing that if you make the mistake, it's okay. You can pick yourself back up. I gave myself the permission to just say, hey, no, I'm not going to do that. And it's okay if people don't like me. It's okay if I lose friends. It's okay because at the end of the day, I'm not okay continuing to push myself and be unhappy. And specifically in work, right? We have to pay for our lives, and that's funded by your job.
Now you are the VP, you're a boss lady, you are in a leadership position. So how does this mirror some of the DEIB initiatives or thoughts that you have when you're creating inclusive environments?
Yeah, so I actually, from my old role, I was part of the employee council. I actually helped create our DEIB program and had that built. I built a business plan for it and helped the company say, okay, now we actually have something so we can go hire someone to do this. I did it for voluntarily because I felt so strongly that there was a need and that I was helping set us up for future success. And so what I do now as the VP of Marketing Strategy and Sponsorships at MoPOP, I'm the one making the rules. So part of it is allowing my team to have open conversations. I talk openly about what's going on. We're pop culture, right? So,
Yes.
I mean, we're
Which is
talking about
global,
everything.
right? Yeah.
Yes. So we're talking from anywhere from what's going on in the music industry to the fashion industry. And it's real conversations because it's real life. And so you're actually able to speak about it. And then being open during my one-on-ones to say, wait, how are you actually feeling? How mentally are you feeling? Are you at capacity? What does that mean? What's going on in your life? So I actually, during one-on-ones, ask them what's happening because number one, I don't know if they're going through something and how does that impact, or I'm asking them to, hey, can you get me that report? And their life is literally falling apart.
Yeah.
They're going through a breakup. They got to move out, and so that's part of my being inclusive. I think that goes a long way, regardless, if you're a BIPOC or not. It's just being able to be yourself is one key element. I also, during our team meetings, we talk through like if it's a different holiday, what does that mean? How are we doing it? But being in marketing, our job is to have that lens all the time of
Right.
being inclusive, right? DEIA, DEIB, B is belonging, and even accessibility. All of those things fall into marketing and PR
Yeah.
because you're the one responsible for getting that message out. And just personally, I also tell some of the women on my team, hey, I know that you're on my team, but what can I do for you? What's your goals? Yes, you're in this role right now, but where do you want to go? And so I'm also always thinking about who I wanted when I was their age, like when I was in that portion of their career, what was I missing? So I can actually, show that. And then me just even being on the executive leadership team.
It's great to have a seat at the table, I have to tell you.
Right.
It's, I don't have to
Push your
tell you,
arms in.
but yeah, I just like it's amazing to be able to be a part of that change. And I think there's something so empowering about it. And what you are talking about is creating psychological safety for people to share what they're going through. Because, like you said, pop culture is very much parallel to our lives. There's an intersectionality there, actually. I have my K-pop BTS pillow in my background all the time and all these like toys around me, which are mine, not my kids. But that whole thought of, what are people interested in? How are they relating to some of the messages that are being put out there? I mean, the positive sign is that there's more and more diversity in terms of representation in media. um, the and part is it's not going as quickly to dismantle institutional racism and isms that we have. So, how do you feel like you and your team are approaching kind of dismantling some of those stereotypes and also being able to bring in other aspects of pop culture that may be a little bit more, I guess, underground is the old school term, but you know what I mean, like on the fringe that really could impact other people?
Yeah. And so I think it's pop culture just is everything from fashion, like what we wear to what we listen to what we eat, drink, drive. And so when I'm working with my teams, we're taking in everything that they've seen. I've been trying to, as I hire, I think hiring processes is something where we can start and looking at, okay, well, what is your level of investment in diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, belonging, and asking those questions to see how people are actually feeling about it. And I'm like, no answer is wrong. So, but it's bringing in the right folks into your culture, into the organization, and having that as a question, really. Here at MoPOP, it's about everything that we do. So even when we're doing an exhibition, I'm asking, well, what part of DEIA is that? And from my marketing team, that's kind of already in their heads. Even when we're going around thinking about ideas, they're talking about what shows they've been watching, why do they like it? And everyone has different fandoms. And part of that too is not, shaming anyone or gatekeeping someone's fandom, right? So saying, oh, do you know more about Hello Kitty than I do? Right? Like it's around like wow, I love Hello Kitty, great. And so we start, as those conversations, it's the encouragement.
Building
I love
community.
that.
Yeah.
Right. And so within MoPOP, that's actually what we're trying to grow. And because it's the pop culture museum, people are, you could be nerdy about something. You can go on a tangent for 10 minutes about Star Wars,
Yes.
right? You you can have your lightsaber at your desk if you want. So I think it's that welcoming and knowing that everyone there is welcomed to talk about their fandom. And then because they're already, wow, I can talk about this at work. I get excited about talking about games or, what game they're playing and what level they're on. Then it naturally goes into, well, I'm opening up about myself. And we even have programs for our education where we're doing a drag camp for kids. And it's just like, oh wow, like those are programs that we're funding to make happen. And so, and STEAM, all of those. But I think, talking about drag and having that within a curriculum,
Yes.
where is that happening?
A safe space. That's, I mean, it's
Yeah,
amazing, especially
yeah,
given the month that we're in.
yeah.
So one of obviously the big intersectionality that I like to talk about is, the intersection between music, mental health, or music and pop culture. Um, and how do you see mental health really intersecting with pop culture at this point in time?
That's a really good question because those are some of the things that we put into our museum to have people start thinking and talking about. And we have a guest curator program right now, and that's actually within that space. All of the artifacts that we have are from folks that are younger who are no longer with us. And
Mm,
so it's around, and majority of them are musicians.
hmm.
And so that's a thought-provoking question of what's going on behind the music. Maybe they didn't have the opportunity to speak about mental health. And a lot of the folks that we're showcasing with our artifacts, it was not in current day, right? It was maybe in the 90s, the 80s, the 70s. And so there is that stigmatism of not talking about it. Maybe it wasn't something that they wanted to share. And so it opens up those conversations. We have those we actually have a youth advisory program, and we also have a music program that's anyone under age 20.
Oh,
And so
wow.
yeah. And so we give them all the tools, we help them produce their music, we give them a big stage. But part of that too is talking to industry professionals. And so we're bringing those folks in to speak to the younger group. So I think that's also one thing that I can physically see. I can't speak about all the industry as a whole, but that's something that we've really focused on. And then internally, from an employee perspective, we are encouraged to do the EAP programs. We are
Hmm.
encouraged to talk about, hey, do I need a mental health day? Hey, you know what? I'm feeling a little overloaded. I'm going to take a wellness day, or I'm going to just step away. When we have conversations, we're working on our DEIA work, and that's heavy. I'm in
Yes.
conversations for hours, 2 hours. And at some time you got to say, you know what, I just need to take a break. I'm going to just listen to some music real quick and try to refocus myself. But it is a lot. It's having that conversation and making it normal in the
Yes.
workplace.
And I have long hoped that we would build a mental health program for the industry, because I think what I've seen for a lot of the artists that I've talked about and I've worked with other artists, there's this constant workload that's being placed on artists to produce, to be creative, to be innovative. And that's a lot of pressure. And as well as there's a lot of drugs and alcohol that's accessible and pressure. And so I think there's just, in any industry, there's expectations, but particularly as people get more and more visible in the media, it's like you have to look a certain way and act a certain way. And it can be cognitive dissonance where it's like, that's not really who I am. And so I'm just really this is kind of my soapbox to let's develop some mental health stuff, people. Like it's really important. And I'm glad your team is really attending to that. So I guess before we jump back into what advice you have for professionals, one of the big things that has come out is this is a heavy topic, trigger warning, abuse of women, sex trafficking. There's Vince McMahon, who it's been kind of pushed under the rug because Diddy has all his stuff, right? And so now, like, it's completely escaping the media. But what are your thoughts on kind of these exposés or these actual footage of people doing these kinds of things?
Yeah, and I think that for us, I mean, just personally too, it's like, wow, there's no words when you
Crappy.
see it. And it's like, well, then that also for me as a woman, how do I support someone? And
Yes.
in my circle or at work who may be being abused and you don't know it. And that's where that interpersonal things are like trying to understand what's happening in someone's life. But for work wise, from a pop culture perspective, we have to think about all of these uh, artists are creators, but they're people.
Yes.
And so just because you're famous doesn't mean you can't do something terrible. And then how do you separate the artist, like the artwork or the work that they've created from the actual person? And those are the conversations that we like to talk about and spark those, like they're hard topics, and you literally can't ignore them. And that's also why pop culture, influences and impacts.
Yeah.
So I think, having those conversations and just knowing and talking about it, like here are resources, or we're even, some of the trainings that could be involved from a manager perspective is like seeing kind of like, what are you actually observing with your employees? Could you see something that maybe if I didn't have that training, maybe I just would ignore it. I would feel like, oh, I couldn't help them. So I think it being exposed now, it will help our future because now it's not talked about, I guess, is one way that I look at it.
I think that's a great way to approach it. And the other part is like, I think that's with anything, right? Of separating the celebrity or the visibility from the person. And I'm personally always torn of like, well, if you buy someone's album, you are supporting the person, the company, and all that stuff. And so even if you really like their artwork, it's like, are you like indirectly or directly supporting this person's behavior, right? So It's a really weird psychological reinforcement question that I have. So going to hiring and, people being interested in transitioning to like a pop culture entertainment career, what do you look for and what advice do you give others?
I actually, the advice I would give people is to think about what you're interested in, what makes you excited, right? I get excited when someone talks about Tupac. I get excited about Hello Kitty or Disney. And so asking yourself, well, what actually makes you excited, right? I didn't have the same excitement when I was talking about a checking account, making an advertisement for that. So I would think about what actually really interests you and then not being afraid you can always go back, right? Like if it doesn't work out, you want to try something new, you want to go to the media, you want to come to a museum, and you were doing something completely different. There's always transferable skills. And at the end of the day, you can go to another job and try it. I would obviously prepare financially to make sure you're good to go.
That was my next question is how can you kind of navigate like the finances of like a big corporate job perhaps and then going into arts, which their entertainment arts like could be analogous or more, but I think about sports, and when people are applying to all these big teams, they actually don't pay very much because so many people want to work there that they're going to grind you for 12 to 14 hours and pay you very little money in comparison to the hours you work. So yeah, how do you kind of balance that like passion and finances?
Well, I basically, and I talked to folks about it, is like I did compromise a lot being in a for-profit in a financial institution. I compromised, being excited about work. I compromised about what was, important to me because you know what? I paid off my ed loans very quickly.
Mm.
Those bonuses are great. But at the end of the day, I still was not internally excited. And the thought of having to keep working until retirement, I couldn't handle that. So I did make sure that, hey, I didn't leave anything on the table. If you have that 401k offering and they gonna match you, you better match it. I did start pulling back on what my maintenance bucket is quite high. And so I started thinking about, well, what are the things that I can pull back on? Maybe I can not eat out that many times. Maybe I don't need to buy those shoes. Maybe I don't need to have that Uber Eats delivery coming, but there are roles and different museums based on and nonprofits that are actually comparable, but you are working more around what drives you. And so I'm surrounded by people that are so passionate, where I didn't see that passion in the for-profit industry. It was very cutthroat. I'll just be frank. Someone's trying to jump over someone else to get to that next level, and it's not very nice. And at the museum and in arts and culture, you are surrounded by folks that are really mission driven.
So that's your pitch to interview with Nikki and like apply for those jobs out there to really market yourself and really show your passion for things. So I know that you are working with, even in sports to market. So any fun, exciting exhibits or fun marketing things that you wanted to put out today?
Yes, so we actually are we're going to have Keith Haring opening on October 12th. And so that really hits our DEIA for the LGBTQ TIA plus. And that is really exciting for us because we're able to put that artwork out. And then we're going to be having something that's more geared to Asia. And we do have then that'll be in March. So I'm excited about that. Right now we do have Leica, which is stop motion. And so that is really, the kids are loving that. And we're going to actually travel that. So it'll be nice to see it travel throughout the country. And so those are some of the exciting exhibits that we have going on. But every exhibit that's going to be coming into MoPOP is going to have a DEIA focus. And that's something that we are priding ourselves on. And I'm excited to see it and being able to be part of that.
That's amazing. Thank you, Nikki, so much for being patient with me and sharing all of your experiences.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. We would love for you to subscribe to the podcast and join our community on all our socials at colorsuccesspodcast.com. Looking forward to you checking out my memoir, Cancel the Filter: Realities of a Psychologist, Podcaster, and Working Mother of Color on Amazon and wherever books are sold. I'd love to hear your Cancel the Filter moments.